it has been a year of a lot less traveling for a lot of different reasons. So I was wondering, in terms of trends, what has AAA and AAA Northeast been seeing in terms of modes of transportation that people are traveling in this year, and also where people are traveling to this year, or how far away they're traveling compared to years past?
That's a great question. So in terms of travel mode, overwhelmingly, people want to travel in their own personal vehicle, if at all possible. It's a safe space. I think they feel it's more hygienic, it's more controlled in terms of environment. So especially for holiday travel this year, over 96% of folks that we surveyed say they will take their own personal vehicle to their destination. And, it's interesting. We typically don't qualify travel as anything less than 50 miles. But this year, we are looking at that differently. We want to know, are people venturing out? Are people visiting with family? Are they just going a state away? So in our surveys, about 50 million people are traveling more than 50 miles from home, but we still are seeing a great number of localized trips. For holiday travel, the majority, 80%, are actually saying they're just staying with family members. They're not staying in a hotel or a resort. We do see an uptick in vacation rental homes as well. But short and longer trips are still being planned. It's really different, like you said. AAA projects that 3 out of 4 Americans have made the decision to stay home for the holidays. And here locally in the Northeast, AAA Northeast conducted a survey, and a little higher here in terms of that percentage. About 81% of our respondents say they have no plans to travel. And actually 54% say that the pandemic did change the original plans they had. My included in that, I will say. We had big plans to go on a whole family Disney trip, and we're postponing that out a year. More for, the older folks in our family in terms of comfort level, but.
Yeah, I know. Disney over the holidays it's such a special time too.
It's magical. But we're trying to adhere to CDC guidelines, and I think everyone will just enjoy the whole experience so much more. But we've always stressed that the decision to travel is a very personal one, and that's so true. I mean, AAA's travel projections, the one thing these projections do not represent is the emotion that's tied to holiday travel. So it's very different, I think, traveling to see your family for Christmas than just planning a summer vacation. So until this point in the pandemic, it's been easier to postpone a trip, to make modifications to a trip. There's something very different about the emotions of grandparents or parents seeing their children or grandchildren. And, it's very clear why, as Americans, we cherish that ability to travel so easily.
You're talking about how you're looking at traveling differently, that 50-mile radius. So is the assumption here that if people aren't traveling, that they're not going outside of their own home, or are they potentially seeing local family? Is there any way to know that?
We didn't drill down quite that far in our survey, but we did ask, are you traveling within your state, leaving your state? And 60% say they are staying within their state, their own state. 40% they're venturing out. So, it's so critical if someone does have plans to leave their own state. The guidelines are different state to state, just to stay on top of the Department of Health guidelines for the place where you intend to travel. The CDC is now asking Americans to get a COVID test before their departure, and then when they return from their trip. Just a couple of asymptomatic carriers, when you think of that on a plane, on a train, within public transportation, can make a huge difference. So.
Right. And then there's also the whole aspect of if they don't do that route, then they'll have to quarantine as well,
Right.
or both. In that survey, did you ask about if people were deterred from traveling because of those things that they'd have to do, like testing and quarantining?
Yes, people seem less or people seem to want to go ahead and make sure that they're following the guidelines. I think for them, it's definitely worth seeing friends and family or getting to go on that trip if all it is standing in their way is a simple test. I think the quarantining is more difficult. That's what we're hearing back from people, whether it's because of jobs or school, that can be more problematic for people. They're definitely more apt just to go in and get tested, which is always the safer bet in our opinion. But you know, we really do need to weigh the risks and prepare far in advance. And you know, it really does speak to travel mode. We don't need to plan as far in advance if we are planning to drive our own vehicles. So a little more flexible.
Right. So if people are traveling, the way that, like you said, the way that they're doing that now has changed so much. You have to book a test. You have to know the guidelines where you're going. You have to know the guidelines for when you come back. What other things are you just advising people if they are taking any kind of trip to do?
Yeah, so one great resource that we have in place at AAA, actually our travel agents use it, but we recommend it for the public as well, is an online resource called COVID Map. So it's aaa.com/COVID Map, brings you right there, and you can actually drill down to individual state and local areas and look at what their policies are, what their restrictions are. So it's a great planning tool in terms of knowing what you need to do before you arrive, and also, you know, any barriers that you would have in travel to that destination.
We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but in terms of how the Thanksgiving holiday was compared to last year, it was drastically different, and the numbers were a little bit wonky in terms of how people were traveling this year, right?
Right. So there were more folks that last minute went out and booked air travel. We were probably underestimating quite a bit. We estimated, 2.7 million people would travel by air, and we found that those percentages to be much higher. I think in this year, everyone is really taking a wait and see approach. So when it comes to air travel, it is kind of last minute bookings. The uptick or the upside to that is actually that airfares were lower than they had been for 3 years this year. So that was really promising. But on the Sunday following Thanksgiving, which is usually an incredibly busy travel day, we still saw locally that we're seeing 60% fewer folks flying in than the year prior. So we know, obviously travel's still down significantly, but more people were taking those last minute trips than we anticipated.
Do you think that they're so last minute because they might be waiting for test results?
I do. Absolutely, Alexandra. I think, people are kind of just taking that wait and see approach, waiting for test results before they confirm with friends or family or with, that vacation property. And honestly, travel vendors are much more flexible this year. We see the airlines and hotels, tour businesses, they're making accommodations, understanding that the consumer has some obstacles in their way. So
now, in the next couple of months, things are going to be shifting slowly, but I think the governor had mentioned in her latest briefing, in her December 3rd briefing, that she expected things would start to shift back to normal in late spring, early summer in Rhode Island. That being said, with everything that's happened to the travel industry, do you expect that these people in the travel industry, whether it's airlines or agencies, are they going to still be as flexible once things are more normal, or are they going to start going back to how things were prior to the pandemic?
It's tough to predict, but I have seen overwhelming camaraderie in the travel business itself. And we still at AAA are seeing an incredible number of bookings for 2021 and later. I think everyone is really anticipating the vaccine, really anxious to get traveling again. It's one of the freedoms that we enjoy in this country that it was very difficult to see, you know, what the pandemic has done to the travel industry. But whether it's vendors, airline, other agencies, people are very, very excited to get back out there.
Since you represent the Northeast, is there one state in particular that has dramatically shifted in terms of how much more or less they're traveling, or is it kind of relatively similar?
I think initially New York, we saw the biggest difference in the state of New York. But no, I mean, it's impacted it's impacted the Northeast incredibly. And when we talk to our colleagues in other parts of the country, you know, they realize that as well. Just, it was really overwhelming. But in this summer, it was impressive how many people did come into our state, into Rhode Island, into Massachusetts from other parts of the country. I know a lot of travel vendors in Newport kept commenting that the influx from New York and New Jersey was incredible to them. They were having a hard time, you know, finding reservations in Newport restaurants over the summer. So, you know, those drive vacations made a huge difference for our economy here locally.
Right, that's a whole other aspect of it, with traveling going down at times and then back up at times. Do you think that it may have evened out the economy travel-wise, or is it still kind of poor compared to last year?
Definitely compared to last year, it's cut in half. And like I said, the camaraderie in the travel industry is really, really impressive right now. I know one of the things that we've done at AAA is a series called Out There and Smart Depart. And we do almost weekly webinars with different, you know, cruise vendors, airlines, just across the spectrum to see kind of what everybody's doing, how they've made changes, how they're keeping people safe, and what their plans are for 2021. So, you know, like I said, I think this vaccine will change absolutely everything. And really, people are so anxious to travel again. We hear it day in and day out. We hear it in our branch offices from our members. So,
has this, I'm assuming that a lot of you guys are working from home.
Yes.
Now, has that changed how people are going about booking, or is a lot of booking already done online? Did you see a lot of people coming in to make trips or do other things, other services that AAA provides, or is it a mostly online sort of thing?
We are meeting with members by appointment, but a lot of our travel is done just this way, done virtually, done by phone. There are a lot of online transactions, but we really do take a lot of pride in that personal touch and making sure that whatever vacations we're booking for our members are vacations, and we really try to be attentive to the details. So we love those one-on-one conversations. It's really whatever our members are comfortable with is what we're trying to accommodate right now. But you're right, we've the majority of us have been home since March 15th, and our CEO is taking the approach that until a vaccine is out there, there's no reason, as long as we're functioning well, there's no reason to get back into the office unless it's essential personnel. So our branch staff, obviously road service, they never missed a beat. They've been working in our offices and on the road, but for non-essential AAA staff, we're doing it all from home. And thank God for technology, because we really don't seem to have suffered much as a result. So
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I'm asking everyone is, you had touched on it a little bit earlier, but your holiday plans changed this year. So how have your holiday plans changed? What are you doing? And what are some of the traditions maybe that you're changing or modifying this year?
So our big plan was something that we had never done, that we'd always wanted to do. We'd always wanted to see Disney World at Christmas. So the original plan was to fly to Disney on Christmas Day with my in-laws, my nephews, who, you know, they're at an age where that would have been absolutely magical. But we're pushing that off. And everyone is planning just to get a COVID test right before the holiday so we can at least have dinner together. You know, I'm a practicing Catholic, so I love midnight mass, and, you know, with houses of worship at, you know, a smaller capacity, I'm just hoping to get a seat at midnight mass because that's something I love to do. But we're an Italian family, so food is very important to us. And, you know, the big Christmas Eve dinner is the tradition that we're really hoping to stick to. We are going to try to stay home as much as possible beforehand, get tests, so we can at least be together around a table.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that you're trying to keep those traditions alive.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, the whole theme of this is just how everything is just very untraditional this year. But
I know.
while keeping the traditions that we truly value alive.
Right.
If you had to guess that this would be how you were celebrating, having to schedule a test to see your family to eat dinner, would you ever thought we would get here?
Never. You know, I've had moments where I've been out just trying to grab a few things at the supermarket or do a little bit of shopping, fully masked. And, you know, I just have those moments like, I can't believe that this is what 2020 has become. I also pushed off my honeymoon, which was supposed to be in the summer. So it seems like, you know, two big trips that I was looking forward to have had to be postponed. But you know what? The trade-off is that everyone has remained healthy. Thank God. And we'll take that. We'll take that. You know, like I said, we do have to weigh the risks and do a little bit of advance work this year, but it's definitely worth it to be, you know, to be able to gather with family.
Diana, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.